Let's talk about the basics of how we go about setting up an ambush. Naturally, an ambush needs to be set up in a terrain that makes sense. So hopefully you've got some tree cover, some vegetation, maybe a berm like this that'll prevent the enemy from seeing you as they approach. First thing the unit leader is going to do when he comes up to set the ambush, he's going to place security. So we've got left security, right security, and rear security. Now, these guys naturally will alert you when the enemy comes in so that everybody can get ready, but it also provides security so that if these guys start coming in a different way that wasn't expected, you can pick up and get out of there before they start getting you in a bad position. But once those guys are set up, the unit leader will go through and he will set up a support element and an assault element, just like squad attack. So when the enemy comes through, naturally, security alerts everybody else that they're coming, so they know they're ready. When they enter the kill zone, the unit leader needs to initiate the ambush. There's a lot of different ways that people like to do it. Some people like to do it with the claymore, with the machine gun, with whatever. Usually the most reliable and safest method is just to have the unit leader open fire with his rifle. It's safe, it's reliable, and it gets everybody shooting all at once. So everybody opens up. Hopefully everybody dies in the spot, the kill zone, but every now and then maybe this guy doesn't get hit and he starts moving. That's what security is for. He can eliminate them before they get too far. Now, once the enemy is dead on the objective, everybody will cease fire, and the assault team will go up, clear the bodies, gather any intel that makes sense, collect information overall, and then come back, at which point the unit leader needs to initiate the withdrawal and get everybody off the objective, because you never know when there's adjacent units. You may get into a really bad situation if you decide to just sit on this objective. Naturally, you can set up an ambush anywhere along the enemy's expected route, but if the terrain allows, it's really advantageous to do what's called an L-shaped ambush, like we've got here, as opposed to the linear ambush, which is all online, like we talked about before. In this setup, you have a support element occupying a position that they can look all the way down the path, whereas the assault element is set up on the side. So what happens is the enemy comes up, these guys initiate just like they would over here, and they catch the enemy in their field of fire. And once they initiate, the support element opens up fire from their position, and it catches the enemy in a really, really nasty crossfire. This is very, very hard to get out of. It's very, very effective, but you need the terrain to set it up. Now, important note, though, is that this field of fire can get really, really sketchy sometimes, because if the enemy starts moving left to right, suddenly you've got a machine gunner pointing very close to your friendlies, or you may have a security element way out here that's having bullets whizzing over his head because the unit leader didn't plan accordingly. So make sure when you're setting this up that everybody knows what their limits of fire are so that you're not shooting your buddies. When setting up an ambush, or really any defensive situation, it's important to make sure that everybody understands the priority of targets. Naturally, in the absence of orders, it's generally understood that targets should be engaged near to far and in highest danger to lowest danger. So machine guns and RPGs and stuff would be engaged first, whereas, riflemen, guys with pistols and stuff would be engaged last. But sometimes that creates problems, because if you've got an ambush set up here, naturally the machine gunner is the closest. So if everybody follows that criteria, what's going to happen is everybody is going to focus all their fire on this guy, and these guys will have time, because they're not being targeted, to turn and respond to the ambush, and that is naturally undesirable. So what can be done in situations like this is this unit leader may say, okay, these guys over here, they're going to focus their fire from left and work right, and these guys over here are going to focus right and work left, and maybe the two guys in the center are going to focus center and work out. That way you get effective fire on everybody, instead of just annihilating one guy, turning him into Swiss cheese, and everybody else is left untouched. After the last ambush video, there have been a lot of questions on how you adapted to fighting vehicles. And it's a good question, because vehicles are very, very different. So the first thing that we need to recognize is that vehicles require specific weapon systems to target them. Naturally, your medium machine guns are not going to do much against heavily armored vehicles. If you're fighting, ambushing technicals or something like that, cool, great. You can probably use your small arms just fine. But you need to make sure that if you're going up against heavily armored vehicles, that you have weapons that can penetrate that armor. So small stuff in the squad platoon, like, NLAWs, javelins, Carl Gustav, stuff like that, those will be very effective at taking out your lighter threats. The javelins can probably take out the larger ones, but when you get into the heavier weapon systems like the javelins or tow missiles like what the Bradley has, you have that longer standoff. So you probably shouldn't be right up on the road to use those weapon systems. You should be way farther back using long-range ambush techniques there, so it puts you at a better advantage with those systems. But those weapons need to be prioritized based on the system, so that, basically if you've got Carl Gustavs, you're putting the Carl Gustavs on the lighter skinned vehicles and the heavier anti-tank weapons on the heavier systems, naturally. Now, one of the issues with vehicles is that they move pretty fast, and they may be spaced out. So you need to find a way to constrict them. You need to find a location where you can get as many of them in the kill zone as possible. One way to do that is with a roadblock. You can put logs down, you can fell trees, you could light tires on fire, you could knock out a bridge, lots of different things to put something in the road so that vehicles then bunch up, they're locked in place as they try to figure out a way around it, and then you can target them in the kill zone. Now, this does have disadvantages, though, because naturally, if they have drones, they have any forward reconnaissance, if civilians driving by let them know, they may just not come this way at all. So another way to do it is to create your own roadblock by simply targeting that very first vehicle. Blow that first vehicle up, whatever it is, and suddenly you may be able to, if you do it in the right place, restrict the road enough so that the other vehicles have a tough time getting around. Vehicles get bunched up as they try to pass, and then you have everybody in the target zone. And then the next shot you fire off blows up the last vehicle. And then suddenly everyone's boxed in, nobody can move, and you can take your time, assigning fires to make sure that you kill all of your targets. But besides that, it's also important to recognize that we may have different priorities of fire. So you may recognize that, the tank is the most dangerous element in what we've got right here because the tank is the most heavily armored. We need to prioritize that first. Make sure that once we get them fixed in location, the tank is what needs to be killed. But we may also look at the situation and say, the enemy's biggest weakness right now is a manpower shortage. And you know that all the troops, all the infantry, are mounted up in the infantry fighting vehicles, the BMPs or the BTRs. So we want to target them because that's what's most devastating to the enemy. Or maybe we say that, we know that this convoy is heading to go support an offensive into friendly urban areas, and this is a TOS thermobaric artillery launcher. That is a very nasty, very useful tool for clearing out entrenched enemy positions in urban areas. And if we have friendlies in those urban areas, we want to target their key assets that they can't easily replace. So if we eliminate that, maybe we just want to annihilate that and then everybody egress before everybody can respond, because that is one of their key weapon systems, and we know that our friendly forces defending urban areas can defend against more conventional threats. None of these questions are right, none of them are wrong. It's all going to be heavily mission dependent on what you're trying to do, and you got to make sure that you understand the situation and you understand the terrain so that you can effectively destroy what you need to destroy everything if you can, but make sure that it makes sense for what you're trying to do.